This podcast is brought to you by Infinite Resources, a local staffing agency connecting diverse job candidates in central Iowa companies.
Amplified.
All right, I'm sitting here with Joshua Barr, Esquire. Now is Raising the Barr LLC.
Yes, that is my organization. That's my company.
That's your company now. You used to be with the City of Des Moines Civil and Human Rights
That is
Commission.
correct, yes.
And we've lost you. You've moved to North Carolina.
Yeah, moving on. But I mean, I travel the
You're
country.
traveling all over the place.
I'm here because I'm doing a workshop for an organization.
Yeah. So keynote speaker, consulting,
Workshops. And community dialogues where we bring community together.
all things human rights. How do you
My biggest focus is, community engagement, bringing community together around issues, because, ultimately, United States is a big experiment on people expanding beyond tribalism, where we come together in spite of religion, skin color, language, and we're able to create this, more perfect union that we're trying to create. So my job is to help people. How do we form that more perfect union? By embracing and doing culture transformation. Because, really, if you want to make change, there's in a capitalistic republic, there are three ways that you have to make change. First is hearts and minds. I don't want to say first. I'll start there. Hearts and minds, behaviors, and then structures, which is law and policy. And you really want to create long-lasting change, you have to hit all three. And you don't have to go in any order. And so what I do is, public speaking, I'm talking about how do we come together around, around certain issues, whether it's housing, whether it's employment, whether it's civic engagement, being more engaged as a community. When I do community dialogues, I'm listening to the community, understanding what are your problems, and then we develop policies and practices around that. And then I do workshops where I dive in with organizations or communities, and we dive into certain issues, really working through doing a lot of projects, doing a lot of hands-on staff engagement, doing a lot of team building activities to help them create a better culture upon which you operate. Because we all operate within respective cultures. There's a work culture, there's a home culture, whether you're a son, a dad, et cetera. There's a culture that you have amongst your friends. And, at the end of the day, I focus on, cultural transformation. And but that transformation is about creating a culture where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, where all communities have the opportunity to thrive and grow.
You're pretty bold about it too. I mean, when I follow you on LinkedIn, and the workshops that you do and the speaking that you do, they're not, sugar-coated.
No.
They're not sugar-coated. So, but I wanted to ask you, so you focus on bringing people together, but, it is the argument can be made that we're very divided, or are we more similar than we like to think?
I mean, well, I did a whole documentary about being more similar than we think. But, I think, one thing I've really strived to do lately is to not watch national news. I want to make sure I'm very good national news.
Okay.
And I got off Twitter, which was really good.
Okay.
And I really just like to focus on what's happening in my community. So that's local news, like, public radio, public television. And I think if you focus on the world outside your window, you'll find that you're probably a little closer than you think you are. I mean, if there aren't pitchforks walking down the street and people hanging nooses and people gunfire all the time, you're probably a little more unified than you think. But I think if you watch national news, which I don't think, the word news is new, like plural. And they don't focus on, they focus on what's hot, what's glamorous, what makes sales. and they don't really get in, and we've lost a lot of investigative journalism to get to the root of issues, which is a huge problem. And I think I think we're closer than we think, but we're still very much divided. There are a lot of things that we have not addressed as a society, as a government, which drives wedges into people. When you look at when you look in the mirror, or you look at the world right outside your window in your community, but then you look on TV and you see these certain things, like, why don't we have those things? That's a real issue. When you look at, the state of various communities, and you see their communities aren't getting the investments. You see, a Supreme Court that has made all these changes that are pro-profit rather than planet and people. That makes you feel like we're more divided than we think. But here's the thing: just because the Supreme Court says something doesn't mean you as a community have to implement certain things, like with the houselessness situation right now.
Yes.
And I know you just did a podcast on that. But the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can fine them now. Certain community, all right, let's do it. They've been itching to do it. It's always been in their core. But now we got the green light from the Supreme Court. But other places have never implemented that, and they've had alternative solutions, such as Houston, such as Salt Lake City, and other places that have drastically reduced houselessness because they don't adopt to this punitive society where if you're poor, where being poor is criminalized.
So there are other cities that have gone a different route.
Yes. There's always a better way if you're looking for it.
Can you name? Is there one that pops in your head that you can kind of refer to? Because like I emailed a couple of city council men and women. Well, actually, all of them. We got answers, and one that says that they're voting no, and then one that says voting yes, and it just seems like there's still no, the one that said that they're voting yes for, there's still no, like, they're not thinking of any alternative path.
There is an alternative path. I wrote a whole article on it. It was in the Des Moines Register. What month are we in? I think it came out July 28th or something like that, whatever the Sunday was. And I did an expanded article on my newsletter, because Chris Coleman said we're at the tipping point. But, Houston is the fourth most populous city in the country. And they reduced their houselessness by about 62% because they adopted the housing first principles. And there are many cities around the country that have adopted the housing first principles, which means we get you into stable housing first, and then we'll worry about all your other conditions. But there are a lot of places, and many more places, that are so focused on, well, you're on drugs, so we can't help you.
Yes.
Or you don't have any money. You owe the electric company this amount of money. We can't help you. And instead of addressing, because I'm a firm believer that if you have stable housing, Maslow's hierarchy, that bottom thing is food, clothes, shelter. If you can address those things first, stable housing leads to stable minds, leads to stable communities. So there are many communities that have adopted the housing first principles in California, in Utah, in Texas, and many other places that have adopted this and have decided that they aren't going to criminalize people being poor. We're going to try to get you into housing first, and then once you get in housing, we'll give you all the other social services you may need to be a contributing member of our society.
So there is other ways. It's just they're just trying to what does this do, by the way? In your eyes, what is this? If they vote yes and it passes, what does it really do? Who does it satisfy?
Who does it satisfy?
Yeah.
Oh, the rich people downtown. That's who it satisfies. We don't want to see this. Even if you watch, I don't know if it was the first or the second vote. I mean, there were some people from powerful corporations. Hey, we think this is the best option. They were like rooting for, actually, I think we got to do something. That was their answer. We have to do something. But they didn't take the time to say, what is that something? Because here's the thing. The brain is a supercomputer. It is designed to solve problems, to help you get back to a comfort level. But the problem is, I'm a firm believer that human beings will never be faced with a problem they cannot solve, but they will find problems they will not solve because the solutions are inconvenient. And that's when you have to get to the core. The core is about money, and it's about capitalism. You have to have those honest conversations. kids go through public school and they never talk about capitalism. It's just as potent in the air as oxygen is when you live in a capitalist society, but you don't talk about it. And capitalism is about money, and that's about power. And so the people in power don't want to look at those things, but instead of using their money to address it, they want to use they want to use the stick, which is, enforcement through police officers, to arrest people, to find people. And it's not just Des Moines. There are a lot of places that do this. But are you using your supercomputer to make the world better? Or are you using your supercomputer to make the world worse?
And your approach is, so capitalism, the conversations that we've had, you say that has to be part of the formula for solutions.
In a capitalistic republic, if you're not talking money, you're not talking laws, you're not talking resources, what are you doing? Everything else is just, window dressing.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand the system upon which you operate if you ever want to get to solutions. And a lot of times, and again, some of these people are my friends. Like they want to do direct services, which is like, give somebody a fish. But in a capitalistic republic, you have to teach people how to grow money, how to expand. You have to teach compound interest. You have to talk about investment. You have to talk about how you spend your time. I mean, the most important things in life, especially as you're growing up, are what you read, watch, listen to, who you hang around, and who you look up to. And those things help you to find certain things. But, in school, they never talk about compound interest. They don't talk about investment. They don't talk about taxes. They don't talk about real estate. They don't talk about property ownership. And because of that, as a society, we suffer because there's education, like a traditional school education, which is partly indoctrination. But then there's also out of school education that certain families know about. They've inherited over the years, and they keep building their wealth. And there's certain conversations we not having. We talking about who's better, MJ or LeBron. Who cares?
So there's around, I don't want to say numbers, but under 1,000 people that are, and you use houseless instead of homeless.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the solution is simple. They don't have a house. Put them in a house. But, a home can be anywhere. Anywhere is home. I go to certain friends' houses. That feels like home.
Yeah.
So home can move. But a house, a physical structure that they need to be placed into is what we're talking about. And again, until you get to the core of the issue, you can never solve the problem. House is a physical structure that people can sleep under to protect them from the elements.
Right.
And we actually have more blighted housing and more abandoned housing than we do homeless persons in Des Moines.
Yeah.
We have abandoned plazas that we could put people into if we really wanted to solve the issue. And that's why I say houses versus homeless, because a home can be anywhere.
Yeah.
But we need physical structures that people can sleep under, helping them get back on their feet so they can better their lives and give back to the community. And the community benefits from that.
And if it's approached with a capitalistic approach of like, so there's about under 1,000 people that that are houseless. How would the city to invest on like housing, which would create jobs for like, which would create like social worker jobs, or is that how would it go about it with the capitalistic approach? Like make them taxpayers, help them get.
Well, I don't want to say a capitalistic approach, because that would be deceitful. How do we think about this issue in terms of dollars and cents? Understanding that in a capitalistic republic, you have to use, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And if we're not spending money, then what are we really doing? So using your common sense and understanding how we invest our dollars. Yeah. So I think using money and sense, well, first of all, let's be clear. There are many places around the world where this is not an issue. You have certain societies where when you are homeless, you can get resources, especially in Scandinavian countries. But people always say, well, it's different in Scandinavian countries because everybody's so similar. Everybody looks alike. Well, then that's a problem with us. Why are we focused more on differences rather than our humanness?
Yeah.
And so I think the answer is really it's not about creating social work jobs. It's about getting those people in, because here's the thing, in a capitalistic republic, the key part is you need workers. And, you know, some of my activist friends don't like me talking like this. But again, all my degrees are in business. Every living organism, in order to eat, has to work.
Yes.
Period. Every living organism, whether it's a cell, whether it's, you know, a cat, it doesn't matter. We all have to work.
Yes.
Now, the way we've set up our system is we have a middleman called the dollar. Instead of we just going to pick the thing off the tree, we work for this dollar, and then we use the dollar to get food. That's really what it's about.
Yes.
It's about survival. Life is very simple: eat, sleep, survive, reproduce. That's life.
Yeah.
But the issue is, now that we've set up this middleman called the money, in order to eat and survive, what we have to understand is, the more people you have that are working and you're investing in their talent, skills, and passions, the more they give to a community, the more they give to a culture, which means that people are more safe, because nobody's out there trying to get their money, because they're focused on theirs. They know what they're good at, what their talents, what their skills, what their passions are, and they're going for that, whatever that is. But the problem is, when you live in an education system that doesn't tap into people's talents, passions, and skills, a lot of kids check out. They look at, you know, you keep saying, hey, go to school, you won't be something, but I'm trying to survive today. How are you teaching me how to survive today? How are you tapping into who I am so I can solve the issues in my community? And we don't do that in American society. Again, we run away from a lot of issues. And I'm a firm believer that education is all about problem solving. If there's no problem in the world, you don't need education. You could just sit out on a beach. Well, we in Iowa, so there ain't no beach. but you could just hang out and chill. But if there are issues, you need to be educated on, how do I solve this problem using my supercomputer and my hands and my feet, my legs, and my other people to come together to address this. We don't do that, number one. So a lot of people check out. And in that checking out, many people are cast aside. They're stuck in giving low wage jobs, et cetera. And again, during the pandemic, we had essential workers, but we weren't giving them an essential wage. You got to come to work, but we ain't gonna pay you no more. But you got to come to work.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to go roundabout to get back to the point that you're asking. When we talk about money and cents to address issues, we have to be thinking about what's in it, not for them, but what's in it for me. And that's when I'm talking to people, talking to communities, I don't say do it because it's the right thing. I firmly believe that's what you should be doing, but I know the right thing to different people in capitalism is different. It's different. And I think you have to understand, what is the driving factor of people. And I show people, you know, the best example I could give is when we there's a policy we did. It's called Fair Chance Ordinance. Fair Chance Ordinance is about taking whether a person has a criminal record off the application process, and they have
like erasing the box.
Ban the box. That's what most people know it as. And you know, I remember there was a person that was opposed to it, and they were like, I don't believe in this. And this person was a restaurateur, and I said, what's your biggest problem right now in your industry? Nobody's coming to work. Nobody's coming to work. And then I explained to him, like, you know, based on the percentage of persons with convictions in this county, imagine if you took that off the application, how many people might apply for jobs. Eyes open wide. Oh, shoot. Oh, I have no issue with this. You know, you have to explain, this is what's in it for you. So if we address the houselessness issue, that allows us to have safer communities. You have to have less money on patrols that can go into education. Your tax dollars could be used to something probably more beneficial rather than punitive. These persons can, again, get back on their feet, get working jobs, which allows for services. And if we train them up in whatever they're good at, their talents, their skills, and their passion, they can produce those things and they can sell those goods. That gives a tax revenue back to the city, which allows us to repair roads and invest in education and all of these things. But most people aren't thinking that deep. Most people are thinking, this annoys me, get it out of here.
Yeah. And most of the time, a lot of the important issues are kind of being looked at that way, right? Like, for example, young people in that are in trouble or that are getting in trouble, troubled teenagers, troubled kids, right? It's easy to say, the parents and, right? Or
Right.
they don't listen, or, they were not raised well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like layers of problems there, right?
So many layers.
So to point the fingers at the parents or, even the kids, it's another one of those issues to me that is kind of the same as like, you're just trying to this is the problem.
Yeah,
and this
paint
is,
things with a broad
yes,
brush. And
yeah.
I agree with you. I think the main thing I always say, because, sometimes I go into communities and we do dialogue and, there's always something, well, it starts at home. Starts at home. That's the first thing,
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Families are a reflection of society and how society treats them. Now, and so if, the best example I give is from a Young Blood song. It said, you don't give a damn, we don't give a fuck. And that's this, there's a great quote that says, if a child cannot be a part of a village, best believe he'll burn it down to feel its warmth. And so we as a society have to be more compassionate, more caring. And again, now we live in this age of what I like to call nice supremacy, where we don't say racist things, but we say everything nice. But we don't do kindness. We don't practice kindness. Kindness is an act. Anybody can be nice. Hey, how you doing? That's nice. Kindness is when you say, hey, how you doing? And the person says, oh, I got this issue, and you try to help address it if you can. That's a difference. And in this society where we try to say, well, it's all about the family, but families are part of a paideia, large group of, you have so much influence in social media, your peers, school, civic organizations, government, mass media, that all these things are in play, and that's part of our society. So we can't say it starts at home when the home is fighting against so many things. And a lot of times, if parents grew up in a society where they were treated as less than or worthless, they embed those things into their kid. Now, I will still say that it's up to us as individuals to break out of certain trends, which I'm personally working on in regards to, I'm doing a lot of unlearning in my life. But at the same time, I'm not judgmental. The best example I'll give is, when I was in school growing up, the dark ages for me were middle school. That was just a really tough time for me, man, just like really bad. And I remember I finally broke out of the shell, kind of woke up a little bit. I'm in a constant state of evolution, so I'm always waking up and people are waking me up, showing me things. But I remember I got two stories. I made it to law school because that was my goal. I was like, I'm getting to law school. This girl told me she was pregnant once, and that was kind of like my wake up call. God, let me get my life together. It was her boyfriend's, not mine, so I'm good. But
that's good.
But I remember I worked my butt off. I had to work off. Old habits die hard, so I had to put in the work for about 2 years of like really raising my GPA, and I hadn't really studied since like 11th grade. But I remember my first day of law school. I walked in, and I saw this girl from my grade school years. Her name was Curlin Perozzi. She looked at me, Joshua Barr. I never thought I'd see you in law school. Yeah, you're probably right. Back then, yeah, you're probably right. But then to further that story is, I remember once I graduated from law school and passed the bar, which allowed me to be an Esquire. And, the first day I walked into the courthouse, the chief prosecutor, he was older black guy, Chip Finney, and he took me a tour through the courthouse. And I think there were like 4 courtrooms. And every courtroom I walked into, we went in through the judge's chambers, through the back. So we would come down. We'd be at the judge's bench. We come in behind the judge. Every courtroom I walked into was some black male that I went to school with, middle school, high school. And these weren't bad kids. I mean, some of them were clowns, and I was one of them too. Yeah. But I was able to break the trend. And so we always have to be working to break cycles. So there is an individual responsibility. But, there's some luck to it, too. If my grandfather wasn't alive and didn't live for 6 years when he had 6 months to live with cancer, I'd probably just be just like one of them, or maybe not in jail, but definitely not living up to my potential and walking in my purpose.
when we have, so when you're doing speeches and when you're promoting them, and the titles of your talks are, like we said earlier, they're not sugar coated. You address racism a lot, and I feel like in this country, you have to be careful about criticizing the country or critiquing the country, because unless I'm wrong, but it feels like you don't love your country then if you critique it or if you criticize it, and so it's like, how dare you do that, and what are your takes on that? And I have a follow-up question about that, but it's like, to me, critiquing the country or wanting it to be better is actually prove that you love it that much, right? Because you want it to be better. But why do you think that exists, this sense of or is this just internal, that if you critique the country, somehow you're looked at that you don't love it? Athletes get told to shut up and do their thing,
right?
And, I don't know if there's a question there. Am I?
But I got some follow up. So, sometimes I walk into a room and I'm in the audience. I look at the audience and say, "How many of y'all think America is the greatest country in the world?" Most hands go up. Now, then my next question: how many of y'all have visited every country in the world? Every hand goes down. How do you have the arrogance to say that this is the greatest country where you haven't visited every country in the world?
Yeah.
And it's vanity. And again, we've been indoctrinated into believing that this is the greatest country in the world. And, it might be good for some people, but you can't say greatest until you've experienced everything. Everybody walks around with the world's greatest dad t-shirt. I mean, it might be great to you, but I don't know if he's the greatest. But one time my sister said, my dad is the greatest. Like, wait, we grew up together. You sure? But the answer to the question is, when I agree with you. I think if you truly care about something, you should provide constructive criticism. And if you really want to improve, because again, there's no such thing as perfection. You can always better your best.
Yeah.
That's why we say to form a more perfect union, always be better.
Yeah.
And the problem is some people, and I used to be one of these people, take critique as an attack. Most people are like that because most people have built up this image of who we are, our ego. And when that in the United States has a huge freaking ego, and when that ego is attacked, when that ego is called out and you point out the imperfections, then you feel like it's an attack. Now, some people are doing it because the imperfection, they profit off of that. And so they don't want people to criticize. Other people have been indoctrinated into that. And so they buy into that narrative and take criticism, constructive criticism, as an attack. I personally disagree. I had a friend today send me a text. We were talking last night, but I was getting ready to go to bed. And so we were having a deep conversation. And I dove in a little deep about something that she was saying. But then I said, "Hey, thank you. Thank you for letting me let off steam." And I went to bed. She texted me this morning and said, it hurt me that I kind of opened up and got vulnerable, and you just and you didn't call it out. You didn't acknowledge it. And I could have been like, "Girl, I was trying to go to bed. Why you being on?" And I was like, "You know what? You were so right.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you pointing that out, and I apologize because that wasn't my intent. I was busy. I was doing something, but that is just an excuse. I value you as a friend, and I want to be better. And so, but again, that's only if you dissolve the ego. I'm not going to say kill the ego, because the ego can help you, but you have to learn how to dissolve the ego and see yourself in everything and everyone.
Yeah.
But if you're only thinking about self, which, the United States does a lot, but they try to say we care about human rights, but hey, don't get me on that ship. When something is called out, you feel as if it is an attack.
And that kind of leads to my other question. That touching on what you said, was that there's other countries that this isn't a problem. Talking about the houselessness or homelessness issue that the United States has, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Skid Row in California, it's like crazy. That's an emergency, right? Like that's a problem that. What other things that are very American, like that only exist here, like the gun problem, the mass shootings? That's a very United States of America problem, right?
And we're spreading obesity around the world too, so we got to talk about that. So
Obesity. I mean, us talking about this right now is exactly what I'm saying. Is it should be addressed, right? Like these are things that need to be addressed and like dive deep into the core of the genesis of the problem and like see work your way from there instead of just, I mean, there was just another mass shooting. I mean, it's a part of our like culture
right?
now.
It's part of the culture now, and now because we're so distracted, and we as a society are so distracted with social media. It's like you see something like, damn, that's bad, and you just skip to the cat video that's next. Or something. It's like we are overstimulated. We have a lot of dopamine coming at us, which doesn't help us as a society to really focus and hone in on things. You know, nowadays, I'll get on my phone to say, oh, I'm gonna do something. Then what the heck did I get this phone for? We're so distracted, and so. When we talk about, the things that are within our culture, here's the thing. Life is always giving us moments where we can awaken and arise, where we can go beyond our present conditions and rise above. But the question is, do we actually try to learn the lesson in everything that happens to us? Or are we trying to, do a quick fix, sweep it under the rug, kick the can down the road, and then again, we get back into that cycle? I'm always trying to awaken to the moment. What is this moment trying to show me? Rather than just praying it away, or whatever. And I think when you do that, that's the only way to change, is to pause for a moment, whatever that moment is, and say, what is this moment trying to show me? And the endless gun violence has been trying to show us we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
But again, there are people who profit off of continuing gun culture. And they show up every single day and they have a very simple message. No, don't change anything. Every day. And that's a very simple message. And we need people who care about humanity, who care about society, need to have another simple message. We can always do better. How can we do better?
And fear-mongering is the best. I think that's the most effective way of keeping people thinking the same way, right? Like they're trying to take our guns away.
Right, yeah. And it's abbreviation for fear, false evidence appearing real. And usually
say that again?
False evidence appearing real. And they plant these seeds in your head that's getting bigger and bigger, and it's in many things, not just guns, but
like migrant invasion.
Yeah. Socialism. Like it's just like all these things.
Should we talk about socialism?
Wait, what kind?
I mean, because this is my take. I feel like a lot of people that are afraid of socialism are a little bit too late to the party.
I mean, we already have.
And educate me, yes. Yeah, like we already have a lot of social.
Things, right. Roads is socialism. Yes. Like, we don't drive on private roads. We got to pay toll. Like that is socialism. Like,
so, like from the moment that your mother's pregnant with you, they go to the hospital. The roads are public. The lights are public.
Yeah.
The hospital is subsidized by a lot of
government dollars.
Government dollars.
Yes.
So you're born. You immediately get a birth certificate, so you're already part of the system.
A social security number.
Social security number, and schools.
School that is very, and even a lot of the private ones in charter schools subsidized government. Exactly.
Yes. And we can just go on and on your trajectory as an American,
right?
And like, there's a lot of social
right.
Right. Like so we live already. We're already in I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, safety nets are good.
Good because again, it keeps you safe. I mean, James Baldwin has a great quote. We have failed to understand that if I'm starving, you are in danger. We have yet to understand that. And, when we talk about, safety nets, et cetera. So you remember when they had the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, when that first came in, Republicans, they were like, we're gonna tear this down. They still trying. Right. But then when they went out after it had been in for like a year or so, the Republicans did their town halls and talking about focus on that. And their constituents like, do not take this away. I finally got health care. No, whoa, slow down. No, because now I see the benefit.
Yes.
And again, when you live in a society where you're fear mongering all the time and telling, it's so bad, but then you get it, you're like, whoa, this is not as bad as you told me. I can actually afford to have health care now.
Yes.
Then you wake up and realize, we've been had. And I think a lot of times, there are so many people who are afraid to try new things. We are so accustomed to just getting stuck into old grooves. And that when new things come along, we get afraid. It's like when the car first came out, people on horses would see a car on the side of the road, get a horse. But now if you said it, you'd be insane. And so we have to be brave enough to get over our fears and dive into real solutions that can help transform our society and understand that there are going to be bumps along the road. That's a lot of times when I'm consulting with people are afraid of making mistakes. They want to be perfect, which doesn't exist. And you have to say there are going to be bumps along the way, but how committed are you to making your culture, your community, your organization better?
Poverty creates crime, right? I mean, if you're a father, if you have a child and they need the medicine, if you don't have the money, you're probably going to go and break into a pharmacy and get the medicine.
But the thing is, we understand that in movies. Les Miserables. That's great. He stole a loaf of bread. Be gentle with him. They said, he's a thug. You have to get him off the streets. We need to get to, we need to stop being a punitive culture, and we need to be a compassionate culture. Understanding why things happen and what can we do to make sure it never happens again.
I mean, and why be so afraid? We already live in a system of things. Like, you got to get an ID. You can't do anything without an ID, without a license. You get a car, you got to go register it. You need tax every year. I mean, we can go on and on and on. And then so this fear of being good to your neighbor and paying taxes and let people use. I come from the food stamp system, in the 90s. We were on food stamps still when it looked like paper. I don't know if you remember, if you ever had them.
No, I've seen them.
And it was a little embarrassing,
Right,
nobody wants to be in food stamps.
Exactly.
So when they came up with the EBT cards, I was like, cool. I wanted that when it was in the But now I'm a taxpayer, a business owner, job creator.
Right.
It pays off in fold.
Right, and that happened because there were safety nets in place. Well, I don't say who knows where you'd be. And so you're a living example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When you actually give people a floor from which to operate, they can transform their lives and give back.
Yeah.
And you are the quintessential example of everything I've been saying. But the problem is, and that's why we got to get you the 90 ideas, and we got to get you on stage, man. We got to get you to tell your story. But that's why you have to invest in people. Because again, you just said it, poverty leads to all sorts of issues.
Yes.
And until we get to the crux and we put in a floor and we don't embarrass people for it.
Yes.
Only then can we be a society where we can have more Amner Martinez.
You said on a video that there's 3 kinds of people that you meet. Can you break them down? Yeah.
So I mean, it's we've been talking about it without indirectly anyway. But there are 3 kinds of people. There are people that want to control and dominate the planet, its resources, and its people. That's the first group. The second group are people who want to live in harmony with the planet and people. And then the third group is the group that is ignorant to that fact. And the largest group is the third group. So that because there is a very small minority of people who control the industries, the resources, et cetera, in various communities. I mean, not just the world, but I'm talking about community. There's certain families that have been big in certain communities. You say their last name. Oh, yeah. Everybody, their name just floats around. And then, again, we are so preoccupied with just living day to day, getting caught up in social media and, who's who and chasing celebrity now. That's a big issue. That we're ignorant that there are certain people that are trying to hog. I mean, because really that's what racism's about. Racism is not about just being mean. Racism was a political economic construct designed to take control of the planet, its resources, and the people, especially the people in the so-called New World, even though the people had already been here. So it was new. It was new to white people. And so because of that, we're fighting, and the people that want to live in harmony, the people who want to share the world and believe that there is enough for everybody, because there is. We hadn't run out of water yet, and there are billions of people. There is enough. There is enough. Our job is to make sure that we're waking up that third group that's ignorant, and not just telling them, hey, there are problems. I don't focus on problems. I focus on solutions. And we got to say there is a better way. There are ways that we can address these issues where we're not penalizing, but we're helping. We're helping people stand on their own 2 feet, and so they can stand with us and create an even better society.
Because I think when you only point out the problem, we would be doing the same thing that we were kind of criticizing, like fear mongering, right? Like, look at this problem, and then don't talk about the solution, and then it's solutions finding,
right? And I think if you only focus on problems, you get a sense of helplessness. It's just there's nothing I can do. And there are a lot of people that do that. Like, they just talk about problems all the time. Problems all day long. No. Let's get the solutions. How do we solve the issue? And that requires listening. That requires patience, and not just in society, in the home. The best communities, the best couples embrace conflict, because conflict comes because we're all different. And there's a such thing as constructive conflict, where constructive conflict and constructive struggle is all about acknowledging that there's an issue, but understanding that we want to get past the issue to the other side where we can operate in harmony. And we know that another issue is going to come. Any person that's been a parent or has had to be a guardian or watch children understand that they're going to have an issue today. You're going to solve the issue, and there's going to be another issue tomorrow. Sometimes 15 minutes, Mom. But what you do is we want to teach each other that there's nothing wrong with we are all different. Every single, even if you live in the same house with the same parents, you and your siblings are different. I have 4 siblings that I live with. All of us are completely different. Now, I'm the most different. My mom looks at me saying, "Are you really my son?" But we're all different, and so we have to understand that coexistence is messy. It's very messy, but understanding that conflict is a part of coexistence, and not running from that, because a lot of people want to avoid conflict. That's a mistake I made in my marriage. Whenever my wife was ready to argue, I was always just trying to solve the issue and not try to, we should have had more arguments. And so you have to embrace conflict, understanding it's a part of the process, especially if you want to have a peaceful existence.
And the type of work that you do, I mean, you're talking about like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, problems in the planet, right? Like, which is racism. How do you wake up every day with not being like bitter or not being, how do you have that mindset of positive and solutions finding and uniting? Where does that come from?
Oh man, that's a good question. Where does it come from? I think it comes from experience partly, not just my experience, but I read a lot, I listen to a lot of people, and just looking at the world. I've had the ability to travel, live out of the country, and I think understanding, like, I just want to break the cycles. I started out as a civil rights attorney. And, when I was doing the work, I would get the same kind of case, just different names. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, am I actually solving the issue, or am I contributing to the problem?
Yeah.
And it just took me a moment of awakening, life showing me like, hey man, this is the same kind of case. You just solved this case for somebody else. Now you're doing literally the same situation, not to a T, but it's very similar.
Yes.
I don't want to be a hamster in a wheel. And so, but there was one time, man, I was, bitter, was angry. But I started recognizing that anger doesn't solve anything. Now, anger can pinpoint a problem. I want to make sure there is nothing wrong with anger. If there was something wrong with having emotions, we wouldn't have any.
Right.
Anger can always pinpoint an issue, but then you take that anger and flip it. What is this showing me? And what do I need to do about it? And so, what helped me to really wake up to positivity? I lost my nephew 2013. That was a real light. That was a moment of awakening. He was 2 years old, drowned near my parents' house, and that was just, this kid was just a ray of light, man. He really, his death really shattered me. That was my shatter moment. That was when I broke. And now I'm trying to put the pieces back together. And his energy, he's a real guide for me when I feel low and I want to get angry. I think about his smile. But in the work that I do, again, I'm really on a journey of dissolving the ego, seeing myself in everything and everybody. And so the fact that I'm alive every day is a blessing, because there are people like my nephew who don't get the blessing of living. Every day is a blessing if you're alive,
right? Even
if you're struggling, because again, we have this supercomputer that can help us solve issues if we're aware of that. So I what wakes me up every morning is the ability to make a difference, both in my own personal growth and in the growth of my community and my family. And I live off the energy of other people. I used to say I was an introvert, but I'm not. Once I sat in the mountains, a week after moving to the mountains, I was like, I think I'm a people person. So I need people around. I need energy.
Yeah.
And again, human beings are pack rats. And if you put a person in solitary confinement, they go crazy.
They're gonna go crazy.
And life is all about relationship with the planet, your home, relationship with other people, and relationship with yourself. And I really try to always make sure that no matter where I'm at, I'm always trying to give positive energy. I'm rarely negative anymore. And I grew up in a family of yellers. So I know how to, but I don't bring that energy because I found it does not solve issues. Anger in people who don't know how to control anger just adds more fuel to the fire. And I'm really a solutions based. How do we work through this for the betterment of us? Not me, for us.
I think we should leave it at that, because I could talk to you for hours. And I think we can do a podcast about mass incarceration. I think we can do a podcast about, racism and, politics is, the presidential race is coming. So I bet we could talk for hours and hours. So I want to thank you for always answering my calls, always answering my emails, and always saying yes. I really appreciate you and your mind, and just kind of how the work that you do, and I'm just grateful, that I also get to have conversations like this with people like you. So to connect with you, LinkedIn is the best way to connect with you.
Raising the Barr LLC.com is where you can find
2
my
R's.
website. Yeah, 2 R's. Thank you. 2 R's.
Raising the Barr LLC.com.
You can find me there. LinkedIn, Joshua V. Barr with 2 R's.
Esquire.
I'm also, Facebook, LinkedIn. But I think if you go to the website, that will give you the channels. It has a contact me page, etc. So
awesome. Well, thank you again, Joshua, and I hope we do this again we shouldn't let another 3 years go by before we do it again. Let's do it again
Let's do one before the election. We're talking about the election. We do an election special or something like that.
All right. Thank you, Joshua.
All right. Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next time.